When King Nebuchadnezzar built a 90-foot golden statue, he wasn't just demanding political loyalty from his empire. By using the Aramaic equivalent of the Hebrew word Tselem, he was launching a direct, calculated attack on the first chapter of Genesis. For centuries, we have been taught that the fiery furnace is a simple Sunday school story about surviving a fire. But Daniel chapter 3 is not primarily about how to survive a fire. It is a terrifying political drama, a masterclass in civil disobedience, exposing the inevitable collision that happens when a human government declares itself God. To truly grasp what is happening here, you have to feel the overwhelming weight of the ancient world. We are standing in the heart of the Neo-Babylonian Empire, under the rule of its most legendary king, Nebuchadnezzar II. He was a brilliant military strategist and a master builder, the mind behind wonders like the Ishtar Gate. His name appears on over 600 recovered inscriptions and tablets. In 605 BC, he conquered Jerusalem, deporting Judah's best and brightest, including Daniel and his three friends, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, who were forced to take the Babylonian court names Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Chapter 3 unfolds right on the heels of Daniel 2, where Nebuchadnezzar had a violently disturbing dream of a massive statue. Daniel interpreted that dream, describing a colossal, terrifying monument with a head of gold, chest of silver, belly and thighs of bronze, legs of iron, and feet partly of iron and partly of clay. He told the most powerful man in the world that his reign was temporary. Nebuchadnezzar was the head of gold, representing Babylon, but inferior kingdoms would follow: silver for Medo-Persia, bronze for Greece, and iron for Rome. Finally, a stone cut from a mountain without any human hands would strike the statue on its fragile feet of iron and clay, shattering every human empire into dust. That stone represents the literal, visible, world-remaking return of Jesus Christ, establishing a kingdom that will never be destroyed. Nebuchadnezzar heard the divine prophecy and decided he was going to edit it. Because Daniel told him he was the head of gold, Nebuchadnezzar's response was to build a statue entirely of gold, from head to toe, standing 90 feet tall and 9 feet wide. This was not a subtle monument. It was a screaming political statement. He looked directly at God's prophecy of successive kingdoms and declared that his golden kingdom would last forever. He was trying to rewrite God's future into one of his own making. He set this massive image up on the plain of Dura, a common Babylonian term for a walled place. Archaeologists have identified a likely candidate about 10 miles southeast of Babylon, where they found a massive square brick platform that could have easily served as the pedestal for exactly such a statue. Then comes the decree. Nebuchadnezzar summons every important official in his vast empire: satraps, prefects, governors, counselors. The Aramaic text lists these titles with a rhythmic, repetitive cadence meant to overwhelm you with the sheer scope of the empire's power structure. The command is brutally simple. When the music plays, you bow, or you will be thrown into a blazing furnace. This was not just a religious ceremony. It was a loyalty test, using forced worship to unify a diverse and sprawling empire. It is a classic move of totalitarian power, blending national identity with spiritual devotion until you cannot tell them apart. When the state-sponsored symphony plays, everyone bows, all the peoples, nations, and languages, except three. Certain Chaldeans immediately rush to the king. The Aramaic phrase describing their action literally means, "They ate the pieces of the Jews," a vivid, violent idiom for malicious slander. Nebuchadnezzar flies into a furious rage. The absolute monarch has been defied, and his pride is wounded. He interrogates them, ending with a sneer from a man who believes he is God. "And who is the God who will deliver you out of my hands?" This is the central tension of the entire book of Daniel. Who is truly in charge? The human king who builds empires, or the God who raises them up and brings them down? The response from the three young men is one of the most remarkable statements of faith in all of Scripture. They don't negotiate. They don't defend themselves. They simply say, "O Nebuchadnezzar, we have no need to answer you in this matter." The Aramaic word they use for matter is pitgam, which specifically means a royal decree or command. They are essentially saying, regarding this specific command, we have nothing to discuss. Then comes the knockout punch. Our God, whom we serve, is able to deliver us. But if not, be it known to you, O king, that we will not serve your gods or worship the golden image. Let that sink in. Their faith wasn't in a specific outcome. It wasn't transactional. They weren't saying, "We will obey you, God, because we know you'll rescue us." They were saying, "Our God is able to rescue us, but even if he chooses not to, our allegiance doesn't change." This is the core of true faith. It is not a belief that God will prevent the fire. It is a belief in a God who is worthy of faithfulness even from within the fire. Their confidence wasn't in their deliverance. It was in their deliverer. Now, we must look at the hidden linguistic architecture of this confrontation. The Aramaic word for the image Nebuchadnezzar built is Tselem. This is the exact same root word used in Genesis 1, when God speaks of creating humanity in his image, the Tselem of God. Do you see the terrifying inversion here? Nebuchadnezzar was demanding worship for a man-made Tselem, an inanimate statue, while simultaneously demanding that the living, breathing Tselems of God kneel before it. And when these men, who were made in the divine image, refused, the text tells us that Nebuchadnezzar's expression, his own face, was changed. His own image became distorted with rage because he was confronted by the true image bearers of the Creator. He orders the furnace heated 7 times hotter. The number 7 is the biblical number signifying perfection or completion, meaning he wanted a furnace of perfect, ultimate destruction. Archaeology confirms that Babylon had massive industrial kilns capable at extreme temperatures, perfectly matching the description of a furnace the king could look down into. It was so hot that the elite soldiers who threw the 3 men in were killed by the flames just from getting close. The 3 men, bound tightly in their cloaks and tunics, fall into the heart of the fire. The story should end here, but it doesn't. Nebuchadnezzar leaps to his feet astonished, declaring, "Look, I see 4 men loose, walking in the midst of the fire, and they are not hurt." 4 men, not 3, and they are unbound. The fire that was supposed to consume them only consumed their ropes. It set them free. This is a profound spiritual picture. The very thing designed by the enemy to destroy you becomes the instrument of your liberation. And who is the 4th man? Nebuchadnezzar, a polytheist, uses a phrase the Aramaic renders as Bar Elihin, meaning a divine being or a son of the gods. For centuries, Christians have seen in this figure a Christophany, a pre-incarnate appearance of Jesus Christ, the Son of God himself, stepping into the furnace with his faithful servants. He didn't shout instructions from heaven. He didn't send a long-distance blessing. He showed up and got into the fire with them. This entire story is constructed as a beautiful literary structure known as a chiasm, where ideas are arranged in a mirrored pattern. It opens and closes with the king's decree. It moves inward to the accusation and the confrontation. And at the very center, the turning point of the entire narrative is not the miracle in the furnace. It is the confession of faith before the furnace. The entire story pivots on their decision, not on God's intervention. Their faithfulness is the anchor. And this chiasm intentionally pairs Daniel 3 with Daniel 6, the story of the lion's den, showing us how to live in exile, loyal to God when the world demands our ultimate allegiance. So what does this ancient political drama mean for you right now? We are still being commanded to bow to Tselems, to manufactured images. We are constantly pressured to bow to political ideologies, cultural trends, and our own ambitions. In a broader sense, this story is a miniature prophecy. Nebuchadnezzar's demand for state worship of a golden image is a direct foreshadowing of the final crisis described in Revelation 13. Where a global power will create an image to the beast and command the world to worship it on pain of death. Daniel 3 is the blueprint. It teaches God's people that the ultimate battle will be over. Worship a clash between the commandments of God and the decrees of men. But it promises that even in that final, global furnace, God will have a people who will not bow, and he will be with them when you face your own fiery furnace. Whether it is a medical diagnosis, a catastrophic financial loss, or a cultural pressure to compromise your faith, your first instinct is to beg God for an escape route. But the 3 friends never received a promise that they would be kept from the furnace. The promise of Scripture isn't a life free from trial. The promise is found in Isaiah 43:2. When you walk through the fire, you will not be burned. It doesn't say if you walk through fire, it says when. The ultimate promise isn't immunity from the fire, but companionship in it. Sometimes the most profound experience of God isn't when he calms the storm or extinguishes the flame, But when he gets in the boat or the furnace and rides it out with you, true faith rehearses its allegiance long before the crisis comes. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego didn't decide to be faithful when they were standing in front of the furnace. They made that decision years earlier when they refused to defile themselves with the king's food. Who you are in the fire is determined by who you choose to be in the quiet, when no one is watching. Nebuchadnezzar could command their presence. He could command their bodies be thrown into a furnace. He could control their environment, their jobs, and even their names. But he could not command their hearts. Their ultimate allegiance was the last sacred ground that could never be taken from them unless they willingly gave it away. Daniel 3 begins with a king trying to unify his kingdom through a single man-made image built on fear. But the story ends by revealing a completely different kind of unity. 3 men united in their allegiance to the unseen God, and a fourth figure, the Son of God himself, standing with them in the flames. True unity isn't found by bowing down together before an image of gold. It's found by standing up together in the presence of the living God. If this deep dive into the hidden architecture of Scripture helped you see the Bible in a way you haven't before, please take a second and hit subscribe. Leave a comment below, because even just one word makes a huge difference in helping this message reach someone else who desperately needs to hear it today. Share this video with a friend who feels stuck in the fire right now. Keep us in your prayers, and God bless you.